Hello again everyone, April is now behind us, which means it's time for another Mario Kart 8 Deluxe World Record review. Like we mentioned last month, April was one of the most exciting months for the world record scene in quite a while, and that is proven by the fact that there were 91 new world records set, the highest total since last September. Of those 91 world records, 52 were set in 150cc. And now, it's time for us to take a deeper dive into each of them. Without further ado, here are all of the 150cc world records we saw happen in April of 2021.
And to begin the month, we pick up right where we left off in March, where Ster was in the middle of a rampage on Dolphin Shoals. This would continue through the first few days of April, as he would improve the world record here another 11 times. Unfortunately, we couldn't reach him, so this month's feedback will be coming from Alberto. Ster started with 4 improvements on April 1st. The first was a 107 millisecond improvement to a 154.036, then to a 154.009, then he achieved the sub with a 153.915. The previous run had a really bad eel on lap 3, so Ster just had to keep up with it to that point and get a better eel, and that's exactly what he did. He ended the day with a 153.870. The next day, Ster got a 153.855, which implements yet another new strat, which is to release the UMT early instead of delaying it until right before the wood ramp before the glider, saving around 50 milliseconds per lap. On April 3rd, Ster got 2 more records, a 153.842, which missed an eel trick lap 2, and then a 153.815. Ster then achieved a 153.801, a 153.708, and then a nice 169 millisecond improvement to a 153.548, which was a much cleaner run overall. Ster's final improvement of the month was by 79 milliseconds to achieve a 153.469 on April 6th. Laps 2 and 3 were fairly similar to his previous run, but a really good lap 1 gave him the improvement. The best known splits at the moment give a 153.221. Congratulations, Ster, on your continued dominance over Dolphin Shoals this month.
In the first few days of April, Alberto would go on a tear, improving his record on 3DS Neo Bowser City 7 times. On April 2nd, Alberto came back after 178 days and cut his time by 16 milliseconds to a 143.127. Lap 1 was pretty bad and Lap 2 was weak, but Lap 3 was well driven and despite its flaws was enough for the improvement. On April 4th, Alberto improved 3 times. He started it off with the first .0 at a 143.094. This was also the first record on the track to implement Motion Glider, which Alberto said actually ended up losing him time since he was too far to the left and couldn't motion well enough to gain. The Motion Glider is only done on lap 3 since you don't need to avoid the wall and can save 70 milliseconds if done well. Here's a clip of how and when Alberto activates motion. As you can see, he turns it on after the S turns and does the MT and shroom with it on. In his next run, a 143.086, Alberto actually didn't go for Motion Glider since he wasn't consistent with it yet. To end off the day, Alberto got what he calls a reverse sub-fail with a 143.067, where lap 1 was very slow. He started April 5th with a sandwich sub-fail at a 143.051, where lap 2 was very slow. He then got a 143.031, which had a BKS lap 3 at the time. Then, with a big improvement of 113 milliseconds, Alberto achieved the sub at a 142.918. Lap 1 was a bit faster than his average, and lap 2 was probably the weakest lap in the run, but was still a .6, which is nice. Lap 3 was great and a new BKS. Although the S-turns could have been better, everything else was good and the ending Motion Glider was fast since he exited the shroom fairly wide, which gave him a good angle to glide. Overall, Alberto is really happy he subbed and is fairly satisfied with the time, but says a .8 can definitely happen, so he may go for it in the future. The best known splits give a 142.795. It also may be possible to use motion on all 3 laps, but it's extremely hard to not crash into the wall after disabling it. Congratulations, Alberto, on your improvements and the sub.
Now let's take a look at Excitebike Arena, which had its first record in just over a year. On April 3rd, Lemon reclaimed his record from Peze, lowering the time by 9 milliseconds to set a 140.956. In the first half of lap 3, Lemon got a really high last trick which forced him to brake, losing around 150 to 200 milliseconds. This mistake made all his nerves go away, and he was able to finish the run and get the record, but he still wasn't satisfied. The next day, Lemon improved by a huge 234 milliseconds to a 140.722. Lap 1 was really good and very close to his best split. On lap 2, he tried a low trick but missed, losing between 50 and 100 milliseconds. But the lap overall was still good. Lap 3 was, quote, perfect and insane. It is very close to the BKS, and when Lemon was finishing the run, he was expecting a 140.8 time, so this 722 was a great surprise, and Lemon is very satisfied with the run. The best known splits, currently all by Peze, give a 140.515. Congratulations Lemon on your insane times here this month.
For those that remember from January, we saw Alberto take the record from Somen on Dragon Driftway. After 65 days, on April 5th, Somen returned to reclaim his record, improving Alberto's time by 29 milliseconds to a 140.757. The beginning of lap 1 was executed to near perfection, and the rest was overall fine with an improvable ending. Lap 2 was about average and had a weak beginning SMT, which was the biggest time loss of the lap. Lap 3 was going well, but unfortunately Somen got a bad edge grind at the turn after the NISC and missed the low trick before the shortcut. Optimally, you want to land on top of the third bump in order to get a better line before shrooming. Overshooting or getting too low air loses an astronomical amount of time. It wouldn't take long to get the 0.6 though, as the next day Somen improved by 125 milliseconds to a 140.632. Lap 1 was slower than the previous run, but had a better shortcut. Lap 2 had a much stronger beginning, but had a bad edge grind after the NISC, similar to the lap 3 in the previous run. On lap 3, Somen lost around 70 milliseconds when he went too tight after releasing the first SMT and had to wiggle to avoid the wall. However, fixing the ending fail from the last run allowed for this large cut. 6 days later, Alberto responded, beating Somen's record by 12 milliseconds to hit a 140.620. Alberto said that the grind to get this record back was the most frustrating one he's ever experienced. He struggled getting to lap 2 due to the bump tricks and other inconsistencies, and even his finished runs weren't enough, with 15 140.6 runs that weren't world record. Alberto had some world record fails that were going to be better than this .620, but he's still so happy he was able to pull through. Lap 1 was pretty clean, being only 20 milliseconds off of BKS. Lap 2's edge grind after the wooden ramp trick was bad. He also got some unexpected extra air from the drift before the shortcut, but it wasn't too costly, making lap 2 overall average. Lap 3's beginning was much worse compared to lap 2, as he was much closer to falling off on the first trick, which is never ideal. Unfortunately, Alberto got what is called a moon jump before the last shortcut, which is when you get air instead of starting the drift instantly. Alberto knew he needed a risky ending, so he went for the double hop strat, which risks missing the trick, but it paid off and was enough to clutch the record. The best known splits give a 140.321, but Alberto says he has no plans on improving his time for now, as this track is very difficult to optimize. As for Somen, only time will tell his plans. Congratulations to Somen and Alberto on your records here this month.
On April 10th, Vincent continued his reign on N64 Rainbow Road from April 2020, improving his time by 21 milliseconds to a 120.102. The worst part of this run was the motion glider, which Vincent described as absolutely trash, and lost 2 to 3 frames overall. On April 12th, Vincent improved twice. His first was a 10 millisecond cut down to a 120.092. Here the first half of section 3 was fantastic, but the second half was a quote hot mess. Later in the day, he improved again, this time by 6 milliseconds to a 120.086. Section 2 had a very good double trick and a pretty decent shroom. Unfortunately, the motion glider was one of the worst he's had in a world record, losing 20 to 30 milliseconds. To end the month, Vincent improved by 23 milliseconds to a 120.063 on April 13th. He got the lucky air double trick in section 2, which gains around a frame. In section 3, he missed the UMT chain on the first shroom, which lost around a frame as well. The motion glider was better than the previous run, but still just meh. For the run overall, Vincent said the general lines can be at least 2 frames faster. This track does have a pace lock at the Section 2 waves, so the best known splits, with Sections 1 and 2 grouped together, gave a 120.015. Congratulations, Vincent, on your records here this month.
On April 12th, Army woke up and decided to dominate Animal Crossing. Throughout the day, Army lowered the record 7 times by a total of 234 milliseconds, and due to these quick improvements, only uploaded his last one, which was a 137.243. Here is a list of the previous 6 records. In his run, lap 1 was slightly above average, with a wide turn after the beach. Lap 2 was the weakest lap in the run, where a starfish after the logs slowed him down and cost 2 frames. Entering lap 3, Army knew that to achieve his goal of a mid 137.2, he would need a very, very good lap 3. He went for every risk and every one of them paid off. He had very tight first turns, followed by a risky motion glider that had a wide landing that gave him a very low second log. The ending ramp was very fast and the shortcut was very tight as well. Overall, Army is satisfied with this run, despite laps 1 and 2 not being the best. The best known splits gave a 136.946. For now, Army doesn't plan on improving the record as long as it doesn't get threatened. Congratulations on your records here this month.
Also on April 12th, Alpaco improved his own world record on SNES Donut Plains 3 by 78 milliseconds to set a 113.294. Lap 1 was actually pretty bad because of a slow water entry. On lap 2, the turn skip wasn't good and the mole section was, quote, messy. Lap 3 though was insane, and the new BKS. The first NISC wasn't the best, but it gave a really good alignment for the part after. Alpaco described the turn skip as TAS because he got really low air and could land on the edge of the grass, which gains around 100 milliseconds on lap 3. The last NISC was also very good. This was a really unexpected world record for Alpaco, and he didn't expect to see a 0.6 lap 3 even being possible. But this is Donut Plains 3, so anything is pretty much possible. The best known splits give a 112.651, giving one of the largest differences between world record and BKS due to this track's insane inconsistencies. Alpaco does plan on pushing for a 113.0 or even the sub sometime in the future. Congrats Alpaco on your record here this month, and best of luck on future attempts.
The next track to see some activity was SNES Rainbow Road. On April 20th, Alberto got his first record here since 2019, improving Paco's time by 10 milliseconds to set a 126.464. Lap 1 was pretty average, but Alberto says it doesn't even matter too much because lap 2 was slower and harder the faster you go. As mentioned last month, there is a pace lock on lap 2 at the double trick, and Alberto wasn't at max pace here. Lap 3 was surprising for him as he managed to keep up with Paco's insane lap 3 from the previous record. Alberto used a new ending strat he found, which consists of getting an empty trick for the end trick, then doing a slide and a hop to recover, which can gain up to 70 milliseconds if done perfectly, which he says makes a 0.3 possible overall. 8 days later, Paco came back and set 2 new records. He first got a 126.460 and then a 126.455. The .455 was the first time he caught the trick before the single thwomp, so he drove safely and didn't go for the empty before the double thwomps at the end of lap 3. He also didn't use Alberto's ending strat. The best known splits give a 126.253, and Paco has continued playing the track, so stay tuned for next month to see that. Alberto says that he has no intentions on coming back, but hopes Paco pushes the track to its limit once again. Congratulations to Alberto and Paco on your records here this month.
On April 21st, Vincent got his first world record on Bowser's Castle, marking his second track in the game to have a world record on. Vincent beat Alberto's time by 33 milliseconds, setting a 159.502. Once again, this track has a pace lock at the waves at Bowser's Fist on lap 2. Vincent's pace was good at this point, but unfortunately he suffered from a bad motion glider, and then on lap 3 he had a wide shroom. On April 26th, Army reclaimed his earlier record and improved 4 times in that day. The first run actually tied Vincent's run, but was then followed up by a 159.472. Army started playing this track to try to make a potential pace break strat found by Alpaco. By getting an MT trick on the ramp before the split path, you can take the left path instead of the right path, which breaks pace since the right path stops giving you one of the tricks when you're that fast. Using this strat, Army improved 2 more times. He first improved by 3 milliseconds to a 159.469, and then by 77 milliseconds to a 159.392. Lap 2 was the weakest lap in this run, with a quote, painfully ugly glider landing. But lap 3 was amazing for Army, and his first 38 lap. On the same day, Vincent adopted the new strat and took back the record with a 159.388. The next day, on April 27th, Vincent improved 3 more times, starting with a 159.373, then a 159.343, and finally a 159.238. In this run, lap 1 was overall a pretty good lap for him. On lap 2, the second turn was pretty wide, but the entire wave section was nearly perfect, which Vincent is extremely satisfied with. The first half of lap 3 had no real flaws, but the second half completely fell apart. The glider turn was pretty weird, and the wall hit before the glider lost about a frame. Vincent was quite nervous coming towards the last turn, but he was able to finish it and still get a 38 lap, which surprised him. Overall, Vincent is satisfied with his time overall, but said he can still lower it by a lot. The best known splits give a 159.146. Congratulations to Army and Vincent on your records here this month.
The next track to see some activity was GCN Dry Dry Desert. On April 22nd, Braydon achieved his first world record on this track, improving Army's time by 16 milliseconds to set a 153.963. Braydon had been playing this track on and off for around a year, and after his semester ended, he managed to make massive progress, cutting around 250 milliseconds in one day and getting his first world record on the track. Braydon didn't have much to say about lap 1, it was just a solid lap. On lap 2, the pillar trick after the sinkhole was quite bad and gave him a terrible line. Lap 3 had an insanely sketchy opening. The Oasis section and Mushroom were horrible and nearly cost him the record. He hopped slightly too early at the shroom, which gave him a very wide angle. 2 days later, on April 24th, Army would reclaim his record, improving Braydon's time by just 1 millisecond to set a 153.962. We'll sort of brush over this one because, as Army puts it, quote, even a first grader could get a faster lap 1. You see, Army missed a crucial trick that lost around 350 milliseconds. Laps 2 and 3 were good because he was just practicing. The next day, Army improved twice. The first was by 25 milliseconds to a 153.937. One difference between Army and Braydon's runs is that Army releases his snaking MTs later than Braydon, which makes his first lap slower but second lap a bit faster. Unfortunately, this run also had a very costly mistake. Army got a bounce before the pillar disc, which gave him a pretty bizarre line toward the next turn, forcing him to press the other direction to not hit the sand, and afterwards he had to release the MT very late to have a good setup for the SMT release afterwards. Army didn't need to worry for long, as he soon improved by 313 milliseconds, all the way down to a 153.624. Lap 1 was really good, and lap 2 was also very good, with just 2 frames lost and an awkward pillar disc. With this great pace, Army was quite nervous going into lap 3. The sinkhole could have been slightly better. He didn't go for the neutral hop exiting it because he really didn't want to fail such a good run. The shortcut was good, and the last trick was just slightly to the left, costing around a frame. Overall, Army is extremely happy with this run. Dry Dry Desert is certainly one of the most difficult tracks to optimize, and this run far surpasses Army's original goal of a 0.7. The best known splits give a 153.424, which is exactly 200 milliseconds off this time, which is great for the track. Congratulations to Braydon and Army on your records here this month.
Right before the start of the Mario Kart Universal season, Ster decided he needed some practice on the game's most prominent front-running track online, DS Wario Stadium. This resulted in one world record on April 29th, a 22 millisecond improvement on his own world record to set the first 151.2 on the track with a 151.286. Once again, thanks to Alberto for this analysis. The main improvement in this run comes from doing the MT trick on the first boost ramp all 3 laps instead of just 1. This is not only faster, but it eliminates the lucky ramp inconsistency that the old strat had. On lap 2, he did it well, but on lap 3 he ended up going wide from it, which made it not really worth it. The best known splits here give a 151.194. Congratulations, Ster, on your records here this month.
The last track to have a world record in 150cc was GCN Yoshi Circuit. On April 30th, Army got his first record here since February 2020, beating Ronnie's time by just 1 millisecond to set a 142.991. Army started playing the track again when P DM'd him about a potential new baby strat. This actually ended up being slower, but it motivated Army to find some strats as well. Yoshi Circuit, like many other tracks, saw the world record go to babies last year. However, this track actually switched back to heavies when Ronnie got a few records in November 2020. Army found a new baby strat for lap 1, which is essentially heavyweight strats but adapted to babies. Charging an MT before the Piranha Nisk, charging an extra MT to get the coins, and getting an SMT at the Tire Nisk. For the run overall, Army called it bizarre. After a great BKS lap 1, he hit a fat wall at the beginning of lap 2, losing a solid 250 milliseconds since it made him go very wide. The rest was actually pretty good since Army was basically just playing for practice after that huge fail. On lap 3, the first turn was a bit wide and so was the landing from the Piranha Nisk, but the rest was pretty nice. Army also finds it fitting that he beat Ronnie's heavyweight record by just 1 millisecond with babies, since Ronnie did the same thing to Army when he switched the track back to heavies. The best known splits with heavies give a 142.749, and with babies they give a 142.666. Army did continue improving his time here over the next few days, which is technically in May, so be sure to look out for that video. Congratulations Army on your time here this month.
Well, that's all we got for 150cc this month. However, as always, the 200cc video will be out very soon, and it had just as exciting of a month as 150 did, so be sure to give that one a watch when it releases. See you all then for part 2 of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe World Record Review, April 2021.